Live wisely now. Essential wisdom from Sigmund Freud. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. What we call happiness in the strictest sense comes from the, preferably sudden, satisfaction of needs which have been damped up to a high degree. Love and work. Work and love, that's all there is. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. The goal of all life is death. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primarily hostility of men towards one another. If youth knew, if age could. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. We are never so hopelessly unhappy as when we lose love. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The madman is a dreamer awake. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. The mind is like an intricate machine, and sometimes it's hard to know exactly what's going on inside it. The great question has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? The ego is not master in its own house. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. It is always possible to bind together a considerable number of people in love, so long as there are other people left over to receive the manifestations of their aggression. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the effect of anxiety. One is very crazy when in love. The mind's road must lead to revelation. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. The reason people find it so hard to be happy is that they always see the past better than it was, the present worse than it is, and the future less resolved than it will be. I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. In my experience, most of them are trash. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Where I was, there shall ego be. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. There is nothing more tragic than a person who cannot find love except a person who finds it and still remains unhappy. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. A man is sometimes more generous when he has little money than when he has much, perhaps to keep from thinking he has none at all. We are so made that we can only derive intense enjoyment from a contrast and only very little from a state of things.